Do probiotics work? What do you need to know to not waste your money? Let me explain. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg with Wellness for Life, and if you'd like to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. There's a lot of talk about probiotics and yogurt and supplements and things like that for the bacterial culture in your gut, but there's also a lot of confusion. So I'm going to explain some basics so that if you take them, that you don't waste your money. So first of all, what is a probiotic? Pro is something that is for, and bio is something that has to do with life. So these are things that support life. And the life we're talking about is your biome, the bacterial culture in your gut. So you have roughly 40 trillion cells in your body, and you have roughly the same number of bacteria in your gut, according to some new calculations. And probiotics are supposed to support the beneficial balance of your gut flora. So what makes them beneficial? The first thing that they do is that most of them secrete lactic acid, Lactobacillus acidophilus. It eats lactose and it produces lactic acid, and most of those beneficial bacteria, they produce some form of organic acid that lowers the pH, because everything that happens in the large intestine needs to be slightly acidic. And the bad bacteria don't like it when it's slightly acidic. So that's a huge component of maintaining balance down there. Number two, they support the barrier. So if you've heard of leaky gut, that's when the barrier loses its integrity, when it gets leaky, when it gets little holes in it. So the beneficial bacteria help support the integrity. It strengthens that barrier to avoid leaky gut and allergies and so forth. Third, it helps with immune modulation. You have the majority of your immune system is in the gut, and the presence of enough healthy bacteria helps support and balance that immune system, the expression of that immune system. Four, it outcompetes the bad bacteria. So when we call them good and bad bacteria, that's not even the whole truth, because nothing is bad as long as it's in a certain balance. So even the stuff that we call bad, they have certain beneficial functions. They produce some good stuff, they produce some vitamins, they help with some good things. The time that they become bad is when they grow out of proportion. So one of the most important things the beneficial bacteria do is they outcompete. They compete for the food resources and they compete for the physical space. And as long as we have a vast majority of good bacteria, then the bad bacteria aren't really bad at all. So it's all about balance. But where does it go wrong? There's something called dysbiosis, and that's when the condition, when the balance has gotten out of hand. That basically means unbalance in that bacterial life system. And there's three things that cause that problem above all others. The first is antibiotics, because it indiscriminately kills off bacteria. And then when we eat sugar, starch, and processed foods, we tend to feed the bad, the opportunistic bacteria selectively. So first we kill off most of everything, and then we feed the bad ones, and now we have chaos and a war zone down there. And the third part is stress, because when we have stress, we activate the sympathetic nervous system, which you can check out this video on sympathetic versus parasympathetic. And when we activate sympathetic, we suppress the parasympathetic. And everything to do with gut health is governed by the parasympathetic nervous system. So everything from stomach acid to enzymes to peristalsis, it's all controlled by the parasympathetic nervous system, which is suppressed by stress. So these three things, which the vast majority of people do on a regular basis, is why dysbiosis is almost the norm these days. Then people hear, okay, my gut is messed up, let me take some probiotics. That's a good thing, right? Well, maybe, maybe not. The idea of probiotics is that they're basically seeds, that you take seeds and you're looking to seed your internal garden. But the question is, do you have good soil in the garden, or do you have something that looks more like a paved over parking lot? Because there's no amount of seed that you throw in a parking lot that's going to result in any growth. And that's the whole idea. You're throwing down the probiotic seeds and hoping that they'll take seed in the good soil and reproduce and maintain that culture. Because it's not about eating probiotics all the time to outcompete the bad guys. It's about regrowing a healthy environment. You can never eat enough probiotics to outcompete anything. It's all about regrowing that culture. So this makes it a little bit of a catch-22, because if you're healthy already, then you're maintaining the balance and you don't need probiotics. But if you're unhealthy and you really need the probiotics, then they do you no good, because then they're not going to seed and they're not going to result in a healthy culture. So the main thing to understand about these guys, they're all good. They can assist the body in regrowing, but we really have to focus much, much more on developing that healthy environment by not taking antibiotics, by cutting out the sugar, starch, and the processed foods, by de-stressing. And then we start to develop the healthy lifestyle habits, which is about everything that we talk about in videos about health. And it's about getting enough sleep. It's about meditating. It's about getting exercise, because all this manages and balances every aspect of your body. More specifically though, what you can do for your gut is you want to start eating whole food, not processed foods. You want to eat lots of vegetables, vegetable fiber, not bran fiber, not from grains. Raw vegetable fiber. So make smoothies and salads and things like that. You also want to start trying to introduce some fermented food like sauerkraut, like yogurt, like kombucha. And because anything that is fermented has those bacteria, but they're already in a growth medium that can support their growth. So it's a more dependable way of restoring that flora. And then is a good time to start checking and seeing if you need some probiotics. So it's not a super easy thing. You can try them and you can see how you feel and if your gut improves, but a lot of people don't really know. And what we do in our office, we test for these things with muscle testing. So people bring in their probiotics, and we have our own probiotics that we sell, because I'm all for them when it's the right time. But very rarely, when people really have an upset system, very rarely do they actually test. Very rarely do they actually work. So we're not going to be in a hurry to sell people anything. When we test and they don't work, then we know we have to wait. We have to do some other things first. So most people don't test for them, and then we have to start restoring the other functions. We have to get them some digestive enzymes. We have to give them some breathing and relaxation exercises. We have to make sure that the liver and the gallbladder are working. We have to make sure that the pancreas is working. We have to make sure that they don't have too much of a leaky gut. So there's all different ways of supporting each and every one of those. And then when they start working better, now we have cultivated the soil a little bit to where they might actually test and benefit from these. So they can be great assistance along the way, but very often they don't work so well in the beginning. So if you do take them, there is really no harm. There are very few side effects. The worst that could happen is you take a bunch of them and you get some gas or some bloating or some constipation or diarrhea, but there's nothing really damaging about it. If you take them, I would suggest you take them on an empty stomach, because a lot of them, they're alive, and if you eat a big steak and your stomach turns into an acid vat, which it's supposed to, then it's going to kill every one of those bacteria. There's going to be a rare bacteria, a probiotic, make it through that acid. Whereas if you eat it, take them on an empty stomach, then a larger percentage is going to make it through. And you may waste your money. It might do some good, or you might just be flushing your money down the toilet. So what I would suggest is find some qualified help to help you figure these things out and maybe get tested. We use what's called nutrition response testing, and if you look that up, you could maybe find a nutrition response testing practitioner in your area, and that, in my mind, would be the best way to figure out how to go about this. So they can be very beneficial, but a lot of times they are a waste of money. So I hope this information was helpful in understanding some of this and maybe help you toward your next step. And if you're new to this channel, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Thanks for listening.